Hi guys, this is Benjamin Plays here, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about a whole bunch of new ways to start off your game the right way. So one of the things that you really want to start doing when you first join, obviously this game is immersed, and there's a ton of different things you can do. You can do anything from a campaign to dungeons, all the way over now to Doom Tower. There's a tremendous amount of different things that you can do. So where do you start? What do you do? Where do you really start focusing? And right now, I would say that if you're first off starting the game, these are some of my tips and tricks on how to start the game off right and get yourself on the right track. If you're not playing very often, or you're just not, very new to the game, then this is going to be a perfect video for you. If not, then maybe perhaps this could help you if you're struggling to progress, and maybe perhaps identify where you can sit there and put a plan to project where your account is going to go. So where to start? Well, first off, let's start with which champions you should be utilizing first. There's 4 champions. The 4 champions obviously are Kayle, who is a mage. He has a great kit with his attack 1 being poison, or putting on a poison debuff. It's very nice to add poison early on in the game because it provides a tremendous amount of extra damage that it's very difficult to find with the other champions. You'll notice too that Kayle is also used in endgame builds, mid to endgame build, and the reason why is simply put, his kit is just great. I mean, the 2.5% poison debuff is not strong by any means, but it's really, really powerful when you start looking at his A3 and his A2. A2 having, the potential to fill his turn meter, which then brings him back up, is fantastic. His disintegrate though is fantastic. Hitting for 4 times at random, it's a great move for clan boss. It can really dish out a lot of damage, and on top of that, having the ability to have a less need to focus on crit rate, but that 15% chance is really, really important, so that you can focus more on crit damage. And even though I'm sitting there kind of talking up Kayle, I'm not going to sit there and tell you that the other champions can't hold their own. Eythel's another great addition. I've seen a lot of people utilize her and be just as effective in the end game as they were with Kayle. I just personally picked Kayle myself, so I have a little more of a what's the word? I just appreciate him more versus Eythel. But I will say though, Eythel would probably be one that I would build up down the road for the Sacred Order, just because she is really good for like faction wars and things like that, which we'll get to in a later video. But anyways though, so you pick your champion. We're at this point where you pick whoever you would prefer, pretty much between Eythel and Kayle. And if you're wondering, yeah, the other champions that are on this list are not great. I wouldn't say they're awful. They just don't match up as well against endgame content. I don't see Galek really being used. You have to put a lot of effort into making him good. And the same thing with Elhain, excuse me. Like I said, she's good, but she's just not someone that I would sit there and put in a top tier damage dealer. Could she be support? Elhain is probably the best in regards to like full on support, because if you get maybe like, I don't know, maybe a poison set, or the freeze debuff set, or maybe even put a stun set on her, she could be pretty good just because of the amount of times that she can hit the opponents. But I just don't see it being consistent enough to really feel like it's going to be an effective way to go to end game content. And to be honest with you, going over to my own Kayle, I mean, he's one of my first 6 stars, and for good reason. This is not like this isn't one of the monster builds that you see where it's like, 90 million power and just like absolute devastating damage. He's Kayle right now. This is a doable thing. 145 speed, 71 crit, or 71% crit rate, 201 crit damage is a little on the high side, but all of this is pretty doable from the mid game and on. And so he just has always been a really, really good champion to utilize. So at this point, we've picked the champion. We've gotten who we want. We go through some different things like the tutorials and everything like that. Where do we go from here? And a lot of people I think kind of lose themselves because you have all these different things like sparring pit, you have the market, you have the mine, you have gems. Obviously, I have a ton right now. There's a whole bunch of different things you can kind of do, and in this game, there's a couple places that in the very beginning of the game I would recommend working on. And the first place that I would recommend going is the campaign. The campaign is going to be one of the best places to get a couple different things. The first thing is silver and experience. And how do you get that? 12-3, baby. That's right. Stage 3 on the 12th mission. You're going to want to do this every single time that you're grinding champions out because you're getting about 8,000 when you have one champion that's maxed out completely, whether it's a little, 2-star all the way up to 6-star. If they're maxed out, the other 3 champions are getting about 8,000 plus experience every single time on a double XP boost. And that's going to be really important for you to have because it's going to help you grind out stuff tremendously. The other thing too that's kind of nice about this stage is that you get a lot of silver because of shields being so valuable and selling for so much within the market. In addition to that, you also can get Incubus, who's a really good champion to use as food within this game, which we'll get to here shortly. And then on top of that, you also have a farmable champion, Diabolus, who's a really good speed champion that until you get your apothecaries that everyone wants, she's a really good starting champion to sit there and really kind of max out to about 5, maybe 6-star if you really get unlucky by not getting apothecary. But it is possible. So definitely a recommended champion to really farm. She has some really good speed debuffs, or she has a speed debuff, buff for all allies that increases speed, which is really important. She also got a turn meter manipulator, which is really fantastic. A sleep debuff, and I'm sorry, not a speed debuff like I said earlier. But anyways, she's a really good farmable champion, and that's one of the other things too that also brings value to the campaign is that there are farmable champions within this game. One of the things that I really tend to focus on is War Maiden. She, as you can see, she barely has anything on, but at the same time, her kit is incredible. Crumbling Blast is one of the most powerful moves in this entire game. And the reason why is you might wonder, well, why can't I just go for an increased attack and do the same damage? Defense down does more damage overall, and I don't have the statistics behind it, but if you test it yourself and don't trust me, just see what it does for you. War Maiden will be one of the biggest champions to invest in. Mine's a 5-star, and I honestly considered 6-starring her at one point to be able to really max her out and have a better team overall. And if I were to 6-star her, she'd be an insane champion by a long shot. The reason why she's so powerful is because of Crumbling Blast. She has a 100% chance when booked out of dropping defense by 60% as a rare. So she's going to be really easy to max out. And honestly, you really just want to put it into the cooldown, because if you get to the 3-turn cooldown, you'll have 1 turn of defense down not being up, and that's really, really key. The damage on this attack is really cool too. So if you can find a way to make it work, you could do an increased attack on this champion, and then place an extra hit, which is really nice because then you can go into Crumbling Blast and just smoke people, and that's a really nice thing to have. And in addition, she also has a poison on her A1. Not really something to really go crazy about, but my point being is that the reason why you want to go after farmable champions is because instead of using tomes, which, let me show really quick what I mean by tomes, you'll get these things in the game called books, or tomes. And this is what a rare book one looks like, an epic one, and a legendary. And the rare ones go into rare champions, obviously. So this apothecary is maxed out, but if, say, I didn't have any sort of books into him, I would sit there and select as many books as I wanted to, and then hit this upgrade skill button down here, and then that would allow me to sit there and max it out so that apothecary would have his maximum skill. And some champions you do want to invest full books into, some you don't. It really depends on the champion. But War Maiden is nice because instead of having to worry about that aspect of books, you can just use repeats of her. So say you play this game for like a week straight and you get like 5 of her, you can use one to level up, and then the other 4 can be used for books. So it's less resources that you have to put into her. And so starting off, my recommendation is to kind of grind out some of this game to the point where you can really get some of the really good valuable pieces in this game. Now you might be wondering, well, what are some other things that are really valuable? Well, the two things that I would recommend to anybody out there are two sets when it comes to artifacts. You want to go for speed set on the Palace of Arabia, and you want to go to the Valdemir Straits. And the reason why is because speed kills in this game. And speed is going to be the reason why you do well in this game. It doesn't matter if you're playing campaign, it doesn't matter if you're playing arena, if it doesn't matter if you're even on the clan boss. You're going to need speed in order to be successful. And if the faster you go, the better you'll do typically. It's not guaranteed, but it is something that is going to help you. And then in addition to that, lifesteal is going to allow you to keep yourself alive longer. As you saw from my previous, when I was showing you my build for Kayle, Kayle has lifesteal on. He's got 4 lifesteal set and speed. He's got these exact 2 sets on here. Now these are not obviously like the very first few skills that are the artifacts that I got. Obviously I got 5 and 6 star stuff, and I also have legendary stuff on here too when it's all maxed out. You're not going to get this stuff initially, but at the beginning of the game, the key is to have this stuff and then just continually upgrade as you progress. So the one thing that I would focus on out of all of the things in this game is, once you get your character, go into campaign and focus on building up your team. Find some champions within the campaign that you can build up and really grind those out. And I recommend looking at them and really investing time. Come on here into YouTube, look up how to do stuff, who's good, who's not. There's some great champion guides out there that really can provide a lot of good info to you and to the community. So make sure to really look and find some really good champions. As I said, War Maiden's really good. Iris, who you just saw as well on the Palace here, she's really good. She can put out stuff. I actually have a maxed out version of her on here. She's just a very solid champion overall. Who else? There's a couple other really good ones. Not this one. Oh, Spirit Host. Yeah, so Spirit Host is really, really good too. Definitely recommend her. She's just very, very good with the increased attack when she's ascended. She also has a cleanse and a block debuff buff, which is really nice. It's on a 5-turn cooldown, which isn't spectacular, but she's really good. And also Greybeard. Greybeard's another really good one. He's got a A1 on this provoke. Really solid champion. Build these guys up, and defense based. Defense is key in this game, and the way that the game works is that if you go for champions that are all attack, they can dish out a lot of damage. But the problem with damage is that you have to look on the flip side. Well, how do I survive hits? Well, champions like Greybeard are going to be able to do that. Why? Because his attacks are based on defense. Now, obviously, his A1 is based on attack, but his A2 is based on defense. So instead of it being focused on attack, you can build a champion that has full defense, make him tankier, and also hit harder. And that's a really, really key point. There's a lot of champions that are like that. You go into my group here. Martyr, very first one. This is a very extreme build and a very lucky build too. She has 5,200 defense with almost 40,000 HP. She is tanky, and she's part of the reason why I actually can produce 22 million damage on Brutal Clan Boss. All the way down here, 22.09. There's War Maiden right there. And notice all these champions have a lot of good defensive stats. This is a defensive champion. This is a defensive champion, and so is this. They're all good champions, and we'll go over Clan Boss and whatnot later, but if you're first starting off, I would highly recommend focusing on those areas. Start with that. Do that for the first month or so. Really grind stuff up. Save your resources. I'm going to say this right now. Don't burn through your ancient shards. Don't sit there and do any of that. Build everything up. Maybe do a couple little tournaments here and there. Save your resources up for ×2 events. And if you do that, you're going to be really, really successful within this game to start off. Now, if you like what I'm doing, or if you want to see more content from me, please feel free to like and subscribe my stuff down below. the support would be wonderful, and feedback would be most appreciated. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day. This has been Benjamin Plays.